everyone. We will call the meeting of the Goffstown School Board to order at 7 p.m. If we can all rise and join Mrs. Moran in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As this is the first meeting following our elections, I'd like to congratulate the board members who were elected and re-elected. So thank you all for your continued public service. I will begin with the election of officers. So we will start with a call for nominations for chair. We will not need a second. So if anyone has someone they'd like to nominate, we will have that name, and then I'll ask if there are any other nominations, and then we'll vote. So I'll start with, are there any nominations for chair? Ginny?
I'd like to nominate Heather.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mrs. Trapaz. Do we have any other nominations for the position of chair? Seeing none. And we are looking for a, Mr. Cloutier is not here,
Right.
but I hope that I do him proud. We are.
Be watching.
Oh,
so
I'm quite sure. He'll let me know how I did. In his defense, I've only been doing this for 10 consecutive years, so one of these years I'll probably get it right for him. But all we're looking for is a plurality of the vote. So all those in favor of Mrs. Trapaz as chair, please say aye.
Aye.
And I'm going to declare that that was a plurality of the vote. We maybe just do hands so we can just make sure that.
Well, or ask for nay, ask for no, and if there's no no's, then it's a yes.
So that, once again, hands?
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, thank you. All right, Mrs. Trapaz, I'm happy to hand it off to you.
Thank you guys so much. So now we need a nomination for a vice chair. Is there? Go ahead, Rose.
I would like to nominate Carolyn Racine.
Thank you. Anyone else?
A second.
Oh, we don't need a second.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. All right, so we'll need a plurality of votes. So all those in favor of Caroline being vice chair, I guess show hands. And we're unanimous. All right, thanks guys. All right.
Do we switch?
If you want to, you can, or you could do it,
You can switch your next meeting if you'd like.
All right, so we're going to move on to correspondence.
This evening, we have a couple of things in the correspondence folder. We have some information that was sent out by the School Boards Association, including new board member orientation, which I'll get to in just a minute. We have a legislative update from the School Boards Association, and as I think you're all aware, there's an awful lot happening legislatively. And lastly, we have, I think everyone is aware that we have a wonderful staff member who oversees our Schoology program. That's Mrs. Lamson, and she has her wonderful digital curriculum newsletter that we included for you.
Great, thanks, Brian. Later. All right, commendations, good news. Go ahead, Lil.
Great news. After rivaling against some tough competitors this year at the NHFBLA State Leadership Conference held on March 23rd and 24th, GHS Future Business Leaders of America won first place Gold Seal Chapter again for the second year in a row, allowing us to retain our title as state champions. And there is a long list of the competitive events and awards and name shout-outs that Heather sent out to the board. So you can take a look at those, but big congratulations to our FBLA. They always do an amazing job.
And many thanks to Mrs. Scarlett for all of her hard work.
Absolutely. She's amazing.
She's incredible.
This weekend, GHS sent 10 students to the New Hampshire All-State, and so that is an auditioned group where basically kids from across the state came together at Goffstown High School and performed. They rehearsed Thursday, Friday, and then performed on Saturday. We got to stay in a hotel. It was very fun. And I'm super grateful for Mr. DeRocher and Mr. Belding, who work super hard and put up with us. Yeah, they're the best. The GHS Spring Dance is April 14th in the gymnasium. And we had a great step-up day for 8th graders. Student ambassadors put on a great day, a great morning for the 8th graders. We had a club fair, tours and a student panel. And then also we had tours and a student panel for parents that Monday night as well. And it went really well, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you, Lil. Wendy?
Yep, I'll just add a few things. Over at Maple Ave, the students attended a performance by Tiger, which stands for Theater Integrating Guidance, Education, and Responsibility, which is through Plymouth State University. The theme of the performance was Team Up Together. So they focused on empowering young students to make good decisions, and the students just really enjoyed the performance. It was interactive, and they had a great experience. The first graders over at Maple also had an in-school field trip last week called Wildlife Encounters. They spoke to the students about New Hampshire animals and actually brought a few animals in for the students to see. The third and fourth graders at both Maple and at Bartlett are involved in their state testing this week, so special thank you to all of our students for working incredibly hard on those tests. Mountain View celebrated student academic achievement as well as positive behaviors last Friday in a whole school assembly. And staff, which included paraprofessionals, teachers, and administrators, got slimed by students because of winning. some
Voluntarily.
Voluntarily
slimed.
I,
There was no involuntary
Yes.
sliming.
I had the opportunity to go to the assembly. I believe it was more than 16 staff members that were literally covered in green slime. They couldn't get it out of their eyebrows. It was a whole thing. But our students in our Flex program actually created the slime to be able to be used as part of the assembly, which I thought was phenomenal to have students involved in that process. Over at Bartlett, the Penny Wars raised over $2,700 for the PTA, which is a pretty amazing fundraiser. Special shout out to Miss Castelli's class, who had the most points and earned a pizza party. So special thanks to the PTA. I can only imagine how long it took to count all those coins, because they had to hand count it, because silver coins meant something different than pennies. So special thank you to them.
Wow, awesome. Thank you, Wendy. Any other accommodations, good news? No, go ahead, Jenny.
I read that MST had a function, and that from GHS, Samantha Metz received a gold in barbering. So congratulations to her.
Awesome. Thank you. Go ahead, Lil.
I totally forgot to mention, juniors took the SATs, gosh, a week ago now. So big congratulations to them. And then also, tomorrow and Wednesday, juniors will be taking the standardized science test. So,
Fun times.
yes, super fun times.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Scott.
Not that she was going to say this about herself, but I was told that a certain student representative participated in the New England Music Festival in Newton, and that she placed first in her age group for a non-classical. So congratulations to you.
Mr. Gross, there was going to be a whole discussion about that during the superintendent's report. So you might have just gotten the short version, so you can thank Mr. Gross later.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Lil.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Anyone else? Commendations, good news? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment, which, hi Kate, I don't see anyone. So we'll move on to the approval of March 20th school board meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read them? Anybody see anything?
I'll move approval of March 20th, 2023 minutes.
Thanks, Ellen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Shane. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? One abstention, and the rest are yeses, Denise. All right, committee reports, A and F. Go ahead, Scott.
All right, unfortunately, there was did not hold an A&F meeting this evening, but I will go over a few items. First and foremost is a manifest. That manifest totals $1,158,615.06. I will just go over some of the key highlights of that. A little over $863,000 is attributed to payroll, taxes, and benefits. Your special ed activities is what you've been seeing for this past year, which is a combination of out-of-district placements and contracted services, because we can't hire folks within district. And for general expenses, there is one correction on your sheet. Town of Goffstown says $40,598.37. So Denise, for the record, if you could, that is for Parks and Rec and GTV services. So just wanted to let you know it's not sewer charges. Pro AV Systems, this is the second of 3 payments for the sound system for the GHS field renovation. And another one that you probably don't see that often, school health. Both Goffstown and New Boston purchased a shared vision screener and printer. This is something that the Lions Club has done historically. There was some data security, data privacy issues with using the Lions one. So we did use an ESSER grant to purchase that. It is soon to be leaving my office and being housed at Maple Avenue School. Will it be shared amongst all of the nurses' offices throughout the SAU, which is really nice because the Lions Club does, and they will continue to do vision screening at all of our elementary, and that includes Glen Lake School, but in the past, we were never able to screen for vision at Mountain View or the high school simply because of the time that the Lions had that shared screener. So now the nurses in all of our schools are going to be able to do vision screening. And as someone who was a former Lion who's kind of passionate about vision, vision problems don't end when a kid goes into middle school. So it's really nice and comforting to know that we'll have this vision screener. For those of you who don't know, it's something where you are literally holding a camera up to someone, to their eyes, and it screens them. Historically, the Lions have the data has showed about 6 to 7% every year of between kindergarten through in our elementary schools acquire vision based upon that screening. And the Lions also provides vouchers for families who do not have the financial means for those follow-up care and also for glasses. So it's been a really, really good program, and I'm proud to say that we have our own. Nice. And in terms of food service, $15,000, a little over that, was for food and commodities. But other than that, it's pretty much what you typically will see. Are there any questions on the manifest or any of the individual payments?
Go ahead, Shane.
I had a question that's, I guess, sort of related to the manifest. So this screener that we're talking about, is this different than the type of screener that like a school nurse would use as part of like a special education eligibility process?
They can use that as well, but what they do is you're going and it's an eye chart. That's what they do right now.
Yeah.
This is different. This is, it looks like it's a camera, and you're just basically shooting it into their eyes. It captures it, and it's able to determine if they have any type of vision impairment.
A little more high tech.
A lot more high tech, yeah, and it's extremely accurate too. And for children who are younger, sometimes it's very difficult to try to. You can use this on a child as young as 3 years old. Yeah, so they might not even know their letters or numbers, and you're able to screen.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shane. Go ahead, Ellen. I saw your hand up.
Just one quick question, back to the food service. Is the revenue from food service starting to cover the expenses?
The jury is still, out on that, and I say that because we're still in our experiment phase here at Goffstown High School, where the revenues rebounded here at Goffstown High School in January and February, and then I think in March the counts weren't as strong, but it's just not something that I think I can speak confidently about, like where it's headed. So right now it appears to be okay. But recognize that we don't have those federal revenues that were coming in. So Megan is going to be coming back to you at the end of this month or early in May on that, and you'll also be discussing that GHS lunch program as well. So we'll have an answer for you, Ellen, at that time.
Thanks, Ellen. Anyone else have questions for Scott? Go ahead, Jerry.
Just for the school health item, I know it says ESSER grant. Was that approved by this board as an ESSER grant fund?
It was on your I don't know if we have officially taken votes on every single thing, but it was on your last
Spreadsheet.
handout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have to take votes on the individual items and how they're spent to be
Not,
compliant?
not for ESSER grant fund, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jared. Anyone else have any questions? All right, so we'll need a motion.
I'll motion to accept the manifest as presented, manifest dated April 3rd of 2023.
Thanks, Caroline. Do I have a second? By Ginny. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
I'm just going to cover just a couple of the items that were on that A&F agenda. So today, I think I was mentioning this to a couple of people as I was coming in, they started hot and heavy. There's a lot of equipment out in the back for the field renovation project, and that's going to go full bore for the next at least 2.5 months. And so you'll see a lot of heavy equipment there as well, asking folks, students not to park in that part of the parking lot where there are cones. There's a lot of heavy equipment going, today alone there was 20 dump trucks worth of sand going in and out of there, as well as a lot of other heavy equipment. So with that, I'll mention it at our next A&F committee, but we have a lot of community businesses that are stepping up on that press box edition to try to keep that cost down because our budget is so tight. So that's very encouraging, and I'll let you know as I get a more further list. But as of now, it's windows and foundations and site work. It's a lot that, and there's another doors, and there was something else that and lumber too, I think. We're getting some discounts on the lumber. So it's pretty fantastic that the community is rallying around that particular project. So it's hard to say when it'll be complete. Everybody keeps asking me that question. The contract says by August 15th, and we're hoping that it'll be much sooner than that. But when you get 2 feet of snow, that kind of slowed us down. We did a lot of work, but so far so good. They're putting right now. They're putting in the drainage. That's what they're doing for the next 2 weeks, and then they're putting in the conduit for all of the electricals, fiber optic, data lines, all that. And then after that, they put in a curbing, and then they start putting in more materials. So you'll see there's going to be GTV is doing a video on it, and then going to do some drone footage. So it'll be
Very cool.
Pretty cool. The next one that I was going to talk to A&F about, again, just very briefly, is mentioned to you that, and I think Kate is here. So Kate, Laura, and myself have been working over the last 2 months on an administrative assistant review process where we have interviewed all of our admin assistants in the Goffstown School District. And we've really, we had a meeting with our administrative team, our principals last week, and shared some of our findings there. So as we start to get further down the road in this project, we'll keep the board updated. But my overall observations are that really impressed with a lot of the support staff, the admin assistants that we do have. There are opportunities for us to be more efficient, and I think we can take advantage of those operational efficiencies. So for Jared and I talk about this stuff like all the time. So there's just a lot of ways for us, I think, for us to be more consistent. There's opportunities for us to back up individuals when they're out on a long-term medical, or they're out, whether that be registrations, just doing payroll, all those things where they can help each other across buildings, not necessarily within a building. So, and recognizing the fact that some of the programs that we have, like Power School, which is our student information system, it's a very challenging program to master, and it takes a lot of continuing training. And if we have backups, it might make sense for the backups to be in different schools and to help each other virtually using Teams and some other technology versus expecting someone with limited training to step in and do it. So just a lot of great opportunities there, and we'll share more as we come out. But I want to thank Kate and Laura because it's been a lot of work, but I think it's been really, really rewarding. And then last but not least, tonight, we have the MS-22 And this is a state form that the DRA requires us to sign off on after the election. So prior to the election, the Budget Committee signed off on the budget. Fortunately, the voters did approve all of the warrant articles in Goffstown. Because of that, all of those items get pushed into what's one budget. And after this, I can either pass it around, or afterwards you can just sign it. But as I mentioned, to Nicole, all of the numbers add up to the $53,106,400 budget, which encompasses your general fund budget, your food service budget, and then your grants budget, right? And keeping in mind that the food service and the grants budget are offset. They are not. Those are not raised by taxation. They're raised by other sources. So, there is no. You don't have to vote on the MS-22. You just have to, sign off on it.
Okay.
All right. Are there any questions on it at all? It's just something that, by statute, the
Right.
board has to sign off on that.
All right, thank you, Scott. Are you set for enough?
I am, and I'm going to. What do you prefer to do? Do you want people to? I can pass these around, and there's 2 copies. You can just sign next to your name.
That's
That's
fine.
okay.
Hmm?
All right, and
We've
then
done that
this on the
before, and then
manifest.
the manifest.
You would just sign anywhere. on
All
any
right,
line.
sounds good. So, moving on, Budget Committee, Jared, do you have any updates?
There is no scheduled meeting, but they haven't updated their website yet.
Okay.
So technically, they say that the meeting's supposed to be the 3rd Tuesday of the month, which would be right after our next school board meeting. However, if they do schedule a meeting, unless if we want to nominate somebody from the board today, we wouldn't have representation.
Yeah, that's later on the committee stuff, so.
True, but we normally, if I recall, Ms. Chair, we put in what we want, but we
Right.
don't vote on it until next meeting.
That's true,
And I'm just worried that if they have a meeting next week, we won't have representation from the school board.
that's true. All right, Retta?
Haven't we in the past, just kept the last person who was there until
Yeah,
the new
until the
committee?
new.
That,
Are you-
whatever we want, but I think we just need a motion for it, whether it's just a temporary assignment too, that's fine.
I'll make that motion.
Do you want to,
If we want, I mean, I can't make it for myself, but I'm willing to do it if I have an alternative.
well, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Mrs. B
I
just
know.
said she's.
I'll put it on the list. I don't want to be
You
presumptive.
do so
and say
good,
I'll do it.
you're good at being on the Budget Committee.
So you just want to sign? I'm willing to make a motion if that's.
For Jared to be, yeah, I'm good with that. And we could do temporary until everybody gives me
does-
their sheets.
Yeah, I
Move
mean,
that Jared
unless if-
continue on as school board budget committee rep until, or unless something changes in
With
that
the committee
representation.
reports.
Right.
Okay, and Shane seconds. Okay, are you good with that?
I just asked for an alternate.
Yep.
Yep.
Ellen will be
Okay.
an alternate. Do you want to add that to the motion?
Okay.
So Denise, can you add that Ellen would be the alternate? Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Thank you, Jared, appreciate it. All right, so PNC, Retta.
Yes, PNC met this evening, and again, a number of items on the agenda. I do want to start off with the Fair Funding Project presentation. As Brian had announced at our last meeting, it will be here to the board, as well as the legislative members that have been invited, and I believe Brian will talk more about that later. We continue to talk about the website, not really making any decisions right now, but looking at what some of the opportunities are and what we may think about in the future, considering whether we want apps, what we would need to do. So we're just beginning that conversation, but you'll hear more about it each time. I do want to thank everybody that was able to attend the Spring Fest. I think it was really great. We had lots of people stop by, and a lot of thanks to the school board for the work that we're doing. They asked question about the projects that we had posted, the field and the MVMS turnaround. Everyone who was able to attended. And I think, we didn't have lines of people at the table, but I think there was a lot of interest. We got a lot of faculty and staff that stopped by and introduced themselves from Goffstown and from other schools. So that was, that was really interesting to see, and one of the members of the citizens, the Goffstown Citizens Committee came by and thanked us for making the space available. I think the event overall was really good, and I think it was great that we were able to have a table there.
Nice. Awesome. Oh, Ellen has a
Yeah,
question.
it was, I thought it was well-attended, and I agree with Retta, the public that stopped by and spoke. The bulletin board put up, thanks to, I think it was the administration, it was very good, and the public did look at it, and they were interested in it and very supportive of the board and the things that were going on. So I think it was very well worth our time to be present where the public was.
Right. Awesome.
Just a question on that, Retta. I know that some people had comments, from New Boston parents, other parents in the organization. Do we have a way that we're going to capture that so that we can kind of collect it and disseminate it to the rest of the organization? And the rest of the community?
So I guess those comments, I didn't capture them. So, and I had thought, do we put a suggestion box? We didn't really write any of those down, so I don't know if that's something you want to present, to.
Well, I'm happy to talk about it now. I think Caroline and I both were talking to a particular parent in New Boston, and she had a child that already went through the system. Mm-hmm. And she has more children coming up through the system. And one of the comments that she made was she wished that there was better integration and opportunity for their 5th and 6th graders with the 5th and 6th graders we have at Mountain View already. Because as we know, when they come in, we already have the Goffstown students have been together for quite some time, coming from Boston and Maple. It just feels like it takes time for those central school students to kind of be part of the quote-unquote clique.
Right.
And it really was high school where it seemed to happen. So she just wanted to mention if there's other opportunities other than Step Up Day, but if we can do any kind of cross-town work to invite them over if we're having plays or for extracurricular activities. I know that, middle school football should be happening sometime soon, that they'd have the opportunity to start those and establish those bonds earlier on. That was kind of a comment that she had made.
Would this be something that we would bring forward to the SAU board? Because I know we've talked about Step Up Day in the past, but is that, is that something that, the planning and communication group does, or is it a different group that would really look at how we might make those changes?
Really the area group.
Yeah,
I
and
think,
we've talked about that. That's the first time we've heard of
The area agreement
it.
has several things that we have in our agreement for transition.
We have a pretty big list
Yeah.
in the agreement. But I think it's, transition is one of those things that we have never arrived. We will always need to continue to do better, to have more opportunities for kids. And this is something, certainly Mrs. Kohler, as the middle school principal, worked really hard on transition, but it's something that we can never become complacent with. It just always needs tending. And I think we have that mindset.
And it's like every time there's an area agreement, there's always extra things added, I think. Would you say, Heather,
Yes
trying
and
to
no. I
get
mean,
more?
I think that's the first. I think they've always been happy with what we've done.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they wanted more, so I think that should be brought and
Oh, yeah,
look
absolutely.
at trying to do more so
Yeah.
that they feel welcome
That's one
and meet
parent.
more of the kids.
It was one parent,
Just
but,
one
I don't know, in the morning, we didn't have that many people that stopped by and talked to us.
Right. Well, it might be worth reaching out to the New Boston Area Committee to see if they're hearing anything, and then
Yeah.
we can
In our
talk
next
about, then
meeting,
the
we
area
can bring it
committee
up
can
again.
talk
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, definitely, look into it.
But thank you also for the comment. I mean, I'm assuming we'll do more things like this, and we may want to think about how do we capture it when we're all taking our slots, and
Right.
there's not necessarily any report out of the day. I try to talk to people when I was there. So that was good. But all in all, a really great event. We talked about Volunteer Appreciation Week, which is coming up in 2 weeks, and we'll be, we're promoting that in a number of ways, using the hashtag Goffstown Volunteers, promoting that within our schools to put that out on their social media, getting it, the Volunteer Appreciation Week up on the boards outside of all of the schools. And also at our next meeting, we'll acknowledge all of the work that volunteers do in all of the schools. The Faculty and Staff Appreciation Week is coming up in May, which is a little ways away, but as I mentioned at our last meeting, we're thinking we would like to propose a video from the school board where all of us that are willing and able to stop by the GTV studio and we'll put something together. We don't have all of the details yet, but giving an opportunity for all the board members to say thank you to both the teachers and the staff. So that's coming up. And then just, we're starting to look at the board evaluation, which we'll do prior to our retreat. So that's all I got.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Have you figured out dates yet for retreat?
It was actually on it's all planned. It's on our calendar already. And
Is it?
I think
missed
Diane
that.
put that, Denise put that in.
Wow, I have to
Already.
read that calendar
That's
again.
the second June meeting.
Because I missed
The
that.
second,
Well, I figured it's the first or the
Yeah.
second meeting
Yeah.
in June.
It's
Is it
the second meeting.
Second meeting,
Second
okay.
meeting, yes.
All right, I missed that one. All right, so do you have another meeting coming up?
Yes, we will have at our next, May, the first week, the
The
first May
first
meeting.
Monday, the first board meeting in May, okay. All right, so you're all set? All right, thank you, Retta. All right, policy, we have a meeting next Monday, April 10th at 5:30 at the SAU. And C&E, Ginny?
CNE has a meeting on April 10th at 7 o'clock at the SAU. And at our April 17th meeting, we're going to have the presentation that Athena Chisholm did for our committee at that meeting about half-day and
Oh,
full-day
nice. She'll be
kindergarten.
here?
So she'll be here for a
Nice.
full board meeting, so everybody can hear her evaluations and research into that program.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Ginny. Oh, go ahead, Ellen.
Ginny, and I don't know if it's already scheduled, so just tell me if it is, it is. Can the subcommittee, and then maybe through that group to the board, get some information about the status of special ed? How many kids, what are the identifications, what are we doing to support them? Are there any needs the board can be looking into providing? We haven't heard anything about special ed in a very long time. So I was wondering if we can get some kind of an update.
Wendy, but maybe that's something we can think about on a
Yeah, the only
ongoing
thing I will mention is,
schedule.
at the April CNE meeting, we do have planned, we have a GAP presentation, and the high school's coming to talk preliminarily about class rank. And then in May, we're gonna be talking about our 2 elementary math pilot programs to make a referral to CNE and then to the board for adopting a new elementary program. So those 2 meetings, we do have a lot scheduled right now, so I just want to be cognizant of that. But Ellen, I do hear what you're saying and trying to get some information. I'm just worried about the things we already have scheduled right now and the amount of time in a meeting that those will take.
Can we limit the amount, instead of can we tell presenters either at subcommittees and at our meetings, you got 15 minutes or you have
Yeah.
20 minutes? And
Yeah.
because we've had meetings where your presentations that take well over an hour and then we're here till,
Yeah, but I think some of the
4 hours, so-
presentations coming down
but
are
not tonight.
a lot.
not tonight.
A lot of
Yeah.
information, right?
Ellen, I
with-
appreciate that. My one concern is the math conversation, I think, is a pretty major conversation, and with the amount that we're going to be presenting, I'm not sure that that's something that would be able to take a really short amount of time. So I want to make sure that we're giving both CNE and the board the information to make an informed decision. This is a really big purchase that has an impact
Yes.
on our students, so I just want to be cognizant of that. But do I think there are other presentations that perhaps we can cut down in the future? Absolutely.
I just feel like we as a board haven't heard much of anything about special ed here in a long time, and thought maybe through that committee would be the best way to go. So
Right.
whenever we can fit it in, I know I'd like to hear about the status
Can
of
add
it.
it to
Yeah.
a calendar maybe next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we can look at is ordinarily, I believe it's in October, we do our data presentation for CNE before it comes to the board. Maybe we can ask for some specificity around special ed as part of that presentation. Not only just about academic achievement, but looking at our numbers, where we are. And I think that would be important because it will be before the budget process. So the board will be able to get that information. So if there are things that building principals are asking for, you'll have a better idea of where we are.
But that's not just special ed, right? That's everybody.
Everybody, but I think,
In the fall,
Ellen,
we get that.
Yeah, with what you were asking, because you
Right.
were looking for some more specific special ed, we
Right.
can add those pieces to that presentation.
I thank you very much.
No
I know,
problem.
I am, and I've mentioned this to you folks before, when we get, and I don't remember when in the year, I don't know if it's only in the fall or whatever, but we get generic data summarizing the whole district with regard to math levels and reading levels and all of that. And maybe I'm alone, but those numbers seem to say that less than 80% of our kids are at grade level in either subject.
No.
Well, I hope I'm wrong, because if I remember seeing those numbers, they were not really very good.
I think you might be looking at proficiency levels. but-
Proficiency
But the
levels,
important
okay.
thing to look at, and maybe this is a conversation
We can
that
do it
you
at
can have
another
offline with Mrs. Kohler. We continue to outperform the state in, I think, every categorical area at every grade level.
and the numbers show
Um,
that.
And let's remember, New Hampshire has some of the strongest SAT scores in the entire country. We have some of the highest achievement in the entire country, and in every level, we are above the state average. So we do have a document. When you guys were, I only printed you 2 copies because it was really, really thick, but the assessment document that you had on Saturday, that document has all of our assessment data, and it is on the website. So that's a good place to go. But maybe we can have Mrs. Kohler just
Okay.
connect with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Alan. Thank you, Wendy. All right, SAU policy, Shane.
SAU 19 Policy Review Committee will meet on April 19th at 5 PM before the full SAU board meeting.
Right, which is at 6 o'clock
At
that
6 o'clock.
night.
Yep.
All right, superintendent's report, Brian.
Thank you. So a few things this evening. The first one I'm going to start off with is I'm going to ask Mr. Gross to give you a brief update on Senate Bill 155 FN-local. And this is a bill that will impact how SAU budgets are done. Mr. Gross?
Thank you. I handed out a copy of the proposed bill. This bill passed the Senate on a 14-10 vote, and then because it passed the Senate, it then went over to the House. I should note that a very similar bill failed in House Education, and it was actually inexpedient to legislate, but it was resurrected simply because of the fact that it passed the Senate and it crossed over. What this would do is it would compel school districts, multi-district SAUs to put the SAU budget as a separate line item on as a warrant article. So it would come out of your budget and would be on your ballot. This bill, the reason why I handed it out is that it's very poorly worded, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I testified against this bill last week. If you look at, let's see, it would be line number 25 is where it starts. What it's basically saying there was that this would appear on hypothetically both the New Boston and Goffstown ballots, and then depending upon how the majority of voters voted, it's a little unclear as to individually within New Boston and Goffstown or together. Kind of implies together that the majority voted in favor of that default budget, of that SAU budget, then it would appear and it would go on our respective budgets, but if it failed, we would operate under a default budget. It doesn't state how you would arrive at that default budget, but more problematic to me is how they worded this. And again, no disrespect to the community of New Boston, but right now, Goffstown's apportionment is about 78% of the SAU's budget based upon a formula that is in the same statute. That's based upon equalized assessed valuation, as well as average daily membership in attendance. What this bill would do is it would essentially give New Boston, who is paying about 22%, I think this bill gives them a lot more weight in terms of whether or not an SAU budget would pass or fail. So I did testify
Because if it fails in one community.
Correct. Yeah, and that's if you read it, it's kind of confusing. And any bill that's like really confusing hopefully doesn't pass anyway. But there are more questions that this proposed language raises than it does answer. And so, yeah, there are some who believe if this bill were to pass, not fail in either of the communities, then you would have a default budget for the SAU.
Go ahead, Ginny.
Scott, I don't understand how, this is a 10-year agreement that has already been voted on by both towns to remain in place for 10 years, and how can now it be something that we have to vote on every year? And what on earth do you do if a town or both of them decides not to accept it?
Yeah, there's a distinction, I think.
Like, does that just leave a school district with no place to go?
I think there's a distinction between the area agreement, which is what you're referring to,
Yeah.
and SAU services in which.
Oh, okay.
And this is dealing with SAU services, so.
Okay, this almost gave me a
super-
heart attack,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
But nonetheless, I think that what should be concerning for the Goffstown School Board is that the way this is written, it almost implies that I think you would have a weakened position in terms of weighted vote. Now, I can't recall the last time Goffstown took a weighted vote, but if you were to ever have a dispute at an SAU board meeting with regard to a budget or any other matter, you could call for a weighted vote. The weighted vote is based upon average daily membership and residence, and right now, I think Goffstown has well over 65% of the students. So in that case, they contradict each other in terms of that. So I'm hoping there was testimony against this bill. I think 6 or 7 folks did testify against it, so hopefully it'll go inexpedient to legislate. But this is a good bill. I do plan on talking about this bill, whether it passes or doesn't pass, when we meet with our state reps and our state senator, because I don't know if our state senator voted for this or not, but I would hope that our state senator would have contacted us in terms of what are your thoughts on this? Does it have any implications for Goffstown? Does it have any implications for New Boston? Now, we have 2 different states. Senator Murphy is the senator for Goffstown, and Senator Ricciardi is that for New Boston. But when you vote on something like this, that Senator Murphy, if he did vote in favor of this, he voted potentially outside of the interests of the constituency. I don't understand why that would be the case. But, and in fairness, when you have 1,000 bills that they're going through, maybe they're not reading all of them, or they're relying upon their staffers, in fairness. But this is one of the challenges that Brian and I have, and Wendy and other administrators, is that there are so many bills, we cannot keep track of them. And this one would be very detrimental to Goffstown.
Ellen, you had
And
your
New
hand
Boston,
up.
too, for that matter.
Oh, sorry, Scott, go ahead, Ellen.
Would it, will the board have an interest in actually making a motion saying that we ask the administration to inform our representative or senator that we do not support this legislation? Would that be helpful to get it on the record, if that's the way the board chooses to go?
Personally, I think it would. I don't, because it would at least let them know if this ever goes to a floor vote again, that they would vote against it. So I think that would be, I think that would be helpful.
Go ahead, Jared.
It's my understanding from what you said, Scott, this has already passed the Senate, is currently in the House. So if any votes or any resolutions are passed by this board, we would want to send that to the House members to not vote for this.
You got it.
Okay.
So if one was so taken, that's, I think, the
Okay.
best way to go.
That's correct.
Go ahead, Ginny.
Scott, if you were at that meeting and spoke against this, what were some of the reasons for this bill even coming up? Any positive? 'cause
Yeah, I
don't
wrote
un-
it down.
I don't understand why it would even be
It
brought.
was essentially to promote transparency and to give more local control to the voters. Those who spoke out against it, I did not address those two things,
Okay.
but those who did speak were a couple of superintendents. And in terms of local control, the local control is, I think one of the superintendents stated that, we thrive in a representative democracy where you, school board members, are duly elected by the citizens to do that SAU budget. In terms of transparency, these budgets do have public hearings. The meetings are open to the public. There are means of input. They're on websites, et cetera. So, and most importantly, within that same statute, which is 194-C, it allows communities to decide if they wanted to put it as a separate warrant article, they could. So it's already there, but yet this would mandate it. Okay, so there already is enabling legislation on SAU budgets if that's how the communities wanted to do it, and neither community has. But that is, it's already in the statute. So it didn't. What happens, again, not to get too much into the weeds, but there's a couple of House members, reps, who sometimes they get slighted in their own community. They become a state rep, and then they put forward a bill that solves a problem that is not really throughout New Hampshire, but maybe in their own individual town. They have a friend who's also a state rep, they co-sponsor it, and it goes through this machine. But this one here just doesn't make any sense.
All right, thank you, Scott. Go ahead, Ellen.
I'd like to move that the Goffstown School Board inform our reps, and I think our senator, even though they've already voted, to let them know that my proposal is that we do not, let them know we do not support this legislation as in its current form.
Thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second? All right, Ginny. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Just because I've received this today and I haven't really been able to fully read and through it, and I understand what Scott's saying, and I trust Scott, I'm not prepared to vote for this resolution or this motion in the affirmative just because I haven't had time to digest this. So that's the only reason why at this point I'd be voting no, not to say that I wouldn't be voting no if it was next time we met.
Right. Thank you, Jared. Any other discussion? All right, so we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining?
Opposed.
We have one opposed. And Caroline, did you say yes or no?
I said yes.
Yes, okay. So we have all yeses and one no. Did you get that, Denise? All right, thank you,
I
Scott.
did one more legislative. I put in a bill with Representative Plett to increase the dollar threshold for unanticipated revenues, the amount which you have to then are required to hold a public hearing. We call it Laura's bill because it's Laura Taylor who hounded me to try to get in touch with the rep. Anyway, as you know, if we get more than $5,000, we have to hold a public hearing, public notice, Denise has to put it in the paper, et cetera. We put forward a bill to raise it to $20,000, and it passed in committee on a 25-0 vote. And tomorrow, Laura
Which
and
is
I-
kind of remarkable.
Which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right, for a House bill, you know. So, so tomorrow, Laura and I will testify at 10 o'clock in the Senate.
Nice.
For that same bill. It's to raise the threshold. So that's
Great.
one good thing that happened this
Thank you,
legislative
Scott.
session. So hopefully it passes.
All right, Brian,
Thank you,
ready?
Scott. Continuing on.
Yes.
So since our last school board meeting, we held an SAU safety meeting where we had all of our principals and our partners in law enforcement and the fire service came and joined us. We will have a few updates for the board in non-public session, probably maybe in our first meeting in June. So we have a couple of updates that we'll give in non-public. Speaking of special education, I wanted to let you know that our special education director, Dr. Dolph, has resigned. She has let us know that she is going to take a little bit of a break from education. She's been doing this a long time, and she will not be returning. So we have that posted, and we plan to give an update to the SAU board at our meeting on the 19th. So more to come there. We are going to hold a new school board member orientation session for our new members. And I wanted to let you know that the School Boards Association has one session scheduled on April 10th and one session scheduled on May 2nd. So Nicole, that would be if you're interested in attending that. We also will be inviting you to just come do a little meet and greet. You probably already know all of us, but we have done this for, I think last year was our first year, or maybe it was our second. But this is something that we're doing every year now, so we'll reach out to you on that. We received the federal grant assurances just today, and I brought those this evening. Every single page has to be initialed and signed by the superintendent and the board chair, so I'm going to leave that with Mrs. Trapaz, so we can get that in for all of our federal grant projects. You probably saw the sign right down here when you came into the library that Mrs. Lewis and our great school counselors continue to hold their future-focused Friday sessions. And this last one, they had Lori Galetta from the New Hampshire Judicial Branch. She came and gave a presentation about the court system and a number of employment opportunities. So many thanks to Mrs. Lewis for this innovative program that she continues to do. We already mentioned school funding fairness will be on May 15th. All of our state reps and our state senator have been invited. So we do plan after that session to have an opportunity, if the board would like to dialogue with our state reps and our senator. That has been set up. And I mentioned that we are holding an ED 306 listening session. That is the so-called minimum standards. The State Board of Education heard a presentation at their meeting last month, and they'll be discussing this again at their meeting next month. This process is at the very early beginning stages, and actually today I heard that Chairman Klein has indicated that this process is going to slow down a little bit, but we will be holding a listening session for anyone who's interested on Tuesday, May 30th. Fred Bramante, who is a former state board chair, is the person who is facilitating that process for the department and the state board, and Fred and his team will be here on Tuesday, May 30th. I would encourage board members to consider attending. We'd be happy to post that as a school board meeting in case we're going to have a quorum, but that session will be on May 30th. I also wanted to let you know that this is an exciting one. This one's pretty cool. So this is something that Mrs. Kohler started a few years ago, but we had teams from Mountain View Middle School that attended the New England Math League annual contest. And only 40 schools participated in all of New England. I guess 41 at 8th grade, but 40 schools in grade 6, 40 schools in grade 7, and 41 in grade 8th, and our kids did really well. They came in 17th out of 41, 20th out of 47, and 24 out of 46 schools. And we had one student, a 6th grader named Kayla McWinney, who placed 4th overall based on her individual score. So these are the best and brightest across all of New England, and some high-powered schools who spend a lot more money than we do were in attendance, and our kids did very, very well. So we're very proud of them. I sent out last week a survey on behalf of the New Hampshire Education Department that went out to all of our families and all of our staff. This is the annual survey that they're doing, and it also serves as the special education survey that we do as one of our indicators. So I wanted to let you know about that. Mr. Gross already shared the information about the administrative assistant process that has been ongoing. I'd like to thank Mr. Gross and Mrs. McGrath for their vision in coming up with this work. This is really reflective of a high-functioning organization to be able to go in and do this kind of critical analysis. And at the outcome of this, we will have better backup systems for all of our schools. And we may be coming to you with a recommendation for a slightly different staffing model, but more to come on that. This Saturday, right here at Goffstown High School, we have students who are all student school board reps who will be coming to join me and to join Lily here at Goffstown High School. We have about 12 schools represented at this point, so we have a nice group of kids that are coming here for a couple of hours. And I think this is a really exciting program. Barrett Christina and Becky Wilson from the School Boards Association will both be here, as this is something that next year the School Boards Association is going to pick up and do statewide. So this started as a good idea, and I'm so excited to continue this work. And Lily will be here. And Lily, is it true that you're going to sing for the group? I had heard that. Oh, okay. I thought
I think you misheard.
Oh, Mr. Gross,
Yeah, no, I
thought.
think that's you. You're singing.
Oh,
You're
okay.
playing
I
the
thought
guitar.
Mr. Gross had shared that with us, but that's all I have this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that board members may have.
Awesome, thank you, Brian. Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Scott, just looking ahead, now that we've gotten through most of our snow days, hopefully, knock on wood, do we have any projected graduation dates or rise updates that you might be able to share?
In fact, we do. Graduation is already booked.
Yep.
Wendy, what's the date?
So let me open my calendar. I apologize.
It should be June 15th,
I believe
right?
it's Thursday, June 15th, with Mountain View in the afternoon and the high school in the evening, and they are both being held at St. Anselm's College.
And to
Thank you.
continue on, what about Glen Lake?
I do not have the information from Mrs. Soil on that yet. Mr.
We'll get that
Bulkey,
for your
do
next
you?
meeting.
Thank you.
We'll get it.
You have any other, you
No,
good?
Good to go.
Okay, thanks, Jared. Anyone else? Questions for Brian? All right, thanks, Brian. Moving
You bet.
on. So we have the school calendar. We talked about it at the last meeting. New Boston took a look at it. They were, everything.
Yeah,
they
so
had known.
let me start by saying New Boston was very appreciative that they had the opportunity to review. They did approve the calendar as it was presented to them. I will share that their calendar and your calendar are slightly different. The Goffstown calendar is 181 school days. The New Boston calendar is only 180, and there's a slight difference in teacher workshop days. But this calendar is no different from the last time you saw it, and we would ask for your approval.
Okay, anybody have any questions about the calendar? Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At our last meeting, we talked about whenever primaries are happening. Are you anticipating that to be a remote school day, or what's your thought process on that, Brian?
Well, so good question. That certainly would be probably a likely outcome, but we have not talked about that. In fact, we have a principals meeting tomorrow where we're going to be having more discussions about remote learning days. I think that this still continues to be a program that we're evaluating. But at this point, it makes sense that it probably would shift to a remote day, and it does sound like it could be scheduled kind of late. So I don't really have any sense of when that New Hampshire primary is going to be. It makes sense that it's in January, but it could be in December. Who knows? But I would say likely, we're probably looking at a remote day for that day.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Jared. Go ahead, Rhoda.
Just to follow up, if it is a remote day,
So we'll need a motion for this, if everybody's good with it.
Motion to approve the calendar as presented.
Thank you, Jared. Do I have-
Second.
Second by Ellen. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Thank you. All right, so new business. We have a field trip.
So the field trip that we have, this is a new request, and they are looking to go to Walden Pond down in Massachusetts, and this is part of a American literature project focused on a year-long look at transcendentalism across American literature. So they're looking at 5 days in June 5th, 6th, 8th, 9th, and 12th, and this would be all grade 11 English classes. They would leave at 8 in the morning and return for dismissal. There are some minor fees, but the budget is able to cover them, and I have a very detailed, very long, involved justification and overview from the English department, but really it's focusing on the works of Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and a number of other authors, and it's a chance to go walk around Walden Pond and participate in that work.
Awesome. Anybody have questions? Go ahead, Ellen.
Where is transcendentalism in our curriculum?
I would leave that to Mrs. Kohler to answer, but it involves a number of works that we have read for a number of years, including Thoreau, Emerson, Leopold, Willa Carter. They even include John Krakauer and a number of other
I see
authors.
the reading, but transcendentalism isn't just reading material. It's a thought process. It's
Yes, I understand that,
philosophy,
and it
so-
has to do with land ethics, it has to do
Right.
with environmental stewardship, it has social responsibility, self-reliance, into community, conformity, a number of those other topics.
Mm-hmm.
So 11th grade would be the answer to that.
And the board's okay with that?
To answer the question, I've read a lot of Henry David Thoreau's works and a lot of the conservation versus protectionism, conservation versus preservation of a forest environment. I say environment as in the actual nature, if you will. I have no problem with it as described.
Go ahead, Lil, did you want to add?
I have my AP Lang notes if the board would like to see them. I could present them. They're pretty boring, but if you would like to see what we're learning.
Are you in this
here,
class?
Feel free. I'm in AP Lang.
Okay.
But we do learn about transcendentalism.
Yep.
So if you would like to see,
But also, we don't know what's being taught in it.
I can
So
present my notes, if that would be helpful.
I would
Thanks,
love
Lil.
to see your notes.
Okay.
Ellen, I would also share that the curriculum is all online, so you
Yeah.
can look at every grade level, you can look at every,
Well, that's why I'm asking, because I haven't seen that word anywhere before, so.
Shane and I know Ginny. Shane, go ahead.
I would just like to share that when I was in high school many, many years ago, transcendentalism was a huge unit that we did. So I'm just going to say it's not new being taught in
Right.
our schools. So
Thank you, Shane. Go ahead, Ginny.
I think it sounds like an awesome field trip, and these are very famous authors that everyone has read. And I've gone around Walden Pond, and I just think it's like, I think these kids were really lucky to be able to go on this and to put their work into being there and seeing it and doing it. And if they need an extra chaperone, call me.
You're volunteering.
I'm volunteering. I would like to make a motion to allow these students to go on this trip and enjoy.
Thank you, Ginny. Do I have a second?
second.
By Shane. Wendy, did you want to add anything? Because I know Brian had asked you.
Yeah, I honestly think that Mr. Bulkey added the pieces
Okay.
that I would have, and absolutely go ahead on our curriculum connector on the website so you can see the standards that we're meeting. I highly recommend anybody in the community, including board members, take a look at that.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. All right, so we have a motion. I have a second. Is there
Can
any
I
further
just ask-
discussion? Sure. Go
Just a
ahead.
quick question.
You're
So
right.
is this for all of those days?
Yes.
So different classes, or are the students going on all of those?
no, it
They'll
would
just
be
go
different
in.
groups of
Okay.
kids would go one of those 5 days.
I thought it was a week long.
No,
Yeah.
no.
That would be great. Anyone else have any comments or questions before I take a vote? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Ellen, did you vote?
I said, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear
I
you.
have
All
no
right,
problem with the field trip.
so we're unanimous. Thank you. All right, subcommittee
Heather.
sheets, yes.
While we're on the subject of field trips, I hear a lot of going somewhere field trips from the high school, and we were just talking about Maple Ave just had another in-school field trip. I would like to know, because, and a parent has spoken to me about this, I'd really like to know, like, how many field trips out of school our elementary schools are having, because I really don't know of any. And I'd like to know versus in school and out of school opportunities other kids are having. So if somebody could get that information.
Yeah, we've got a principals meeting tomorrow. We can get that information, Wendy, if you make a note of that, and then I'll report out. So I would just share with the board that I have encouraged all principals, go on as many field trips as you want. So
Okay.
there is absolutely no restriction coming from our office of any kind. We've encouraged teachers and administrators, time to get these kids back out on field trips for sure. You tend to hear about high school trips
Yes,
because this board approves overnight and
Yeah.
out of state.
Yeah.
So we tend not to do a lot of out-of-state field trips with younger children, and
Yeah.
certainly no overnight. So you wouldn't hear about them, because if they go to, a New Hampshire destination, that isn't something that would come to the board, but we'd be happy to get that.
And Mom did send me a letter that said we will not be taking any out of school. So I'm just wanting to make sure that the kids are having the opportunity.
Yeah, and I would just say that directive did not come from me. I have widely encouraged
yeah.
all schools to.
And I read the
yeah.
letter, and I think coming out of COVID, where so many places to go and learn something have been closed, that I think our kids should be going somewhere.
Right.
And, I mean, it's nice to have them coming in, but, I mean, we've been doing everything on coming in and doing things online. It would be really good for our kids to be getting back into the interactive part of school. And
Right.
It just got added to the principal's agenda for tomorrow.
There you go.
Oh, thank you so
Look
much.
at that. That's how easy it is.
So if you could update all of us,
Yeah,
that'd
happy
be
to.
great. Thank you, Jenny. Go ahead, Ellen.
Ginny, thank you for raising that, because it's come to my attention as well that there are grade levels that don't go out of the school for field trips at all in the course of a year, or maybe only one. And being someone who used to go on them all the time, the value to children, no matter where they go, but that experience is invaluable to so many kids.
Definitely.
I would just share, one of the challenges that we continue to have is busing.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely, yeah.
on any given day, we may have a group that wants to go to Boston to go to the Museum of Fine Arts or to the Museum of Science or something, and we may not have busing for them. So transportation is and continues to be a significant barrier and challenge for us to overcome. But I again will state, I have widely encouraged all schools to feel free to go on as many field trips. I have not restricted any field trips of any kind.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Wendy.
If I could also add, so at Bartlett for 3rd and 4th graders and in 5th graders at Mountain View, we're in the midst of writing a grant to get Nature's Classroom to be able to come on site, but they're going to bring their facilitators. It's the first time that we've had them on site to do kind of an in-house field trip, but it's going to be a little bit more of like a survivor, so orienteering, things you should know about outside, in, again, something new, and it'll be developmentally appropriate for both the 3rd and 4th graders and our 5th graders, but something new. And again, going back to Mr. Bulkey's point about sometimes not having busing, we've tried to think outside the box to give students the opportunity to have learning from some of our outside resources that meets our curriculum needs. So that's something we're in the middle of working on, so I thought I'd mention that.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. All right, are we all set? All right, so moving on to subcommittee sheets. So Nicole, since you're new, I'll explain. So in your packet, you'll have a list of all the subcommittees that board members are required to try to sit on, 2 to 3 if you can. And then you give them to me, and I try to make sure you get committees that you want. There's also alternates. They have next to each one when they meet, so that you can figure out what works best with your schedule. So if you have them tonight, that would be great. If not, you can email them or call me or whatever is easier. And then the next meeting, I'll have them all typed up, and then we approve them. So does anybody have any questions? And feel free that if you've been on subcommittees for a while and you want to change it up, that's fine too. So whatever you guys want to do.
Is there any official place where you describe what each of these is responsible for?
There is
there
a,
something?
yeah, there is a single sheet that has all of the descriptions. And Denise, I'm not sure where that lives.
With me.
Okay, it
With
lives
Denise.
Thank you.
We can send that out.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, you can ask any board member, because all of us have sat on, multiple committees, so.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, school staffing.
So this evening, you have one notification. Congratulations to Mr. Chachos for moving from bachelor's to bachelor's 15. For your approval, we have a resignation So we have two resignations. You might want to do them
Yeah, we could
together
do
or
those
however
toge-
you'd
No, we
like.
could do those together, right?
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the two resignations? Go ahead, Jared.
Just because I know that for Glen Lake, that was a one-year position, so is it that they're just resigning a little bit early to get a jump start on something else, or?
So this position wasn't full-time, and I think that was a factor in this one. It was a one-year position, but I think that this particular teacher was in need of a full-time job.
Understood.
And I think that's what was at play here.
Thanks, Jared. Anyone else have any questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the resignations of Leanne Barkins and Ryan Keller.
Thank you, Shane. Do I have a second? By Ginny. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay, we're unanimous.
Thank you. For non-renewals, these were all one-year positions, and it wasn't listed as one of them, the Title I, but I believe that to be the case as well. So these people all knew that these were short-term gigs. And we have a couple of people in here that would be in the retiree camp. So
Yeah.
I would again thank Abby Andrew, Ginny Sinclair, Barb Carey, who stayed on with us and just did incredible work.
So they're leaving?
Well, I don't want to give a spoiler alert, but you may see at least one of these names again, I believe. So
Okay.
not this meeting, but perhaps your next meeting.
All right, so anybody have any questions on the non-renewals for the teachers? We'll need a motion to accept them.
So with next a motion that we accept the non-renewals for the teachers listed.
Thanks, Jared. Do we have a second? By Ginny. All right, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, teacher nominations.
Okay, so you have the big list of all of the teachers, which includes everyone's name
packet.
and their FTE, their full-time equivalency percentage, as well as their step and track. So we would be looking for your approval of that entire list, as well as the two individuals listed here, Molly Brown and Maureen Salidas.
Did everybody see the big list?
Serratus.
It's a separate list, just so you all know what you're
Oh, there we go.
approving.
I'll motion to approve the teacher nominations for the 2023-2024 school year.
Thank you, Shane. Do I have
Second.
second by Ellen? Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. And administrator
Okay,
nominations.
continuing on, we will discuss administrator compensation in non-public at the end of the meeting,
Okay.
and that will include support staff and technology as well. So these other groups, we will go through that, but we would bring these nominations for you as well. So it would be the administrators, facilities, support staff, technology.
In non-public.
Yep, we will go
Okay.
through all of those in non-public.
And then we have the co-curricular sport.
And we have two co-curricular sports. These are for volleyball. We have one new person and one returning person, so two nominations for athletics.
All right. Do I have a motion for that?
Move to approve the nominations for athletics.
Thanks, Ellen. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Nicole. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay, we're unanimous, so the rest we'll discuss in
Yeah, the rest we'll
non-public.
discuss in non-public, and then we'll do the nominations after.
Move to go into non-public?
Yeah,
While we're
first, I just want to make sure, other business, go ahead.
So I passed this out, Kate was in the back, and she reminded me in terms of our long-term disability and life insurance. We did do this in New Boston at their last meeting, and we forgot to put it on the agenda.
Gotcha. Good catch, Kate. Thank you.
So before you is a memo from Kate, and for those of you who don't know, we use a vendor, Lincoln Financial. They provide both our life insurance and long-term disability insurance for the Goffstown School District. As you can see below, there is a slight increase of 5% over the current rate. What that translates into is, if you look down from the bottom line, our anticipated annual increase based upon this renewal will be about $3,400. So it's not a huge thing, but it's something that we have to bring before you as a board for approval, because it is one of the benefits that we do provide. We have had really, and Kate's here as well, but we've had very good luck with service and everything from Lincoln Financial. Kate, they've been with us for a while. So very reliable in terms of the service, any issues that we have in terms of it. Again, it's a pretty small chunk of your of our total overall budget, but these are two pretty important things that we provide in terms of benefits.
All right. So you need a motion
We
tonight
need a
to accept
motion,
this.
right,
Does
to
anybody have any
accept.
questions for Scott? Or Kate, since Kate's here? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll motion to accept the Lincoln Financial renewal as presented.
Thank you, Caroline. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Nicole. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay, we're unanimous. So is there other business that may legally come before the meeting?
I thought Wendy was going to give us a predicted score for the game tonight, and then we can revisit it the next meeting.
Probably
right.
not
Wow.
a score, but I'm going with UConn this evening.
By how many points?
14,
14.
yes.
Wow.
Is this to win the bracket between?
I'd
people?
rather not speak about the bracket. It's a sore subject around the SAU, but
All right. So I'll need a motion to go into non-public RSA 91A 32A
So moved.
by Shane. Do I have a second?
One second.
By Retta. I'll do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Caroline? Nicole?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Ellen?
yes.
And Heather, yes. So we're in non-public. So Nicole, we pack up our stuff and we go to the conference